Most investors in the domain name industry would be scared to invest $185,000 in a single premium domain name. But on today's show, we're interviewing a 27-year-old who's invested $185,000 3 times this year. Not in domain names, but in new top-level domain applications worth $555,000. This is the story of how that happened. Stay tuned. I have 3 short sponsor messages before we get into today's show. First, if you have a great domain name and nothing to show when people visit, you're missing out on potential advertising revenue, leads, and partnership opportunities. NicheWebsites.com can build you a site quickly with a price option to suit any need. But as their tagline says, they don't just build websites, they build businesses. Second, if you're buying or selling a domain name or a portfolio and you want an estimate of its value, Estimate.com is the place to go. Just like you'd visit Zillow.com to get an estimate of a house value, Estimate.com provides key information about the most important statistics so you can make an informed decision based on data. Finally, DNX.com is a domain name exchange that uses a reverse auction platform to provide fair market prices for quality domain names that are manually filtered by an experienced broker. At DNX.com, domain prices drop until someone decides the price is right. But don't wait too long or the domain you love might be purchased by someone else. All 3 sponsors have a clickable banner in the upper right-hand corner of DomainSherpa.com. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name investor and entrepreneur directly from the experts. Today's guest is one of the youngest and most successful domain name investors in the industry. Many people haven't heard of him. He's been below the radar, but he's receiving a ton of attention lately as a result of his new top-level domain applications for .xyz, .college, and .now. We're going to find out how he's been able to build such a successful career in less than a decade. Joining us on today's show is Daniel Negari, founder of XYZ.com. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
I mentioned in the intro that you've only been in the domain name industry for about 10 years. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I feel like I've been in the domain name industry all my life because from a very young age, I've always been very interested in domain names and internet real estate is what I like to call it.
Do you remember the first domain name that you ever registered and what year approximately that was?
Yeah, it was about 1998 or so. I remember being in 7th grade in middle school, and I went to the computer lab, and a friend of mine had mentioned to me that every 3-letter.com was taken, and pretty much every generic.com was taken. So I just sat in the computer lab for days just trying to register domains, and I had realized that pretty much everything was taken. And at the time, I decided to start my first entrepreneurial real venture, which was a custom computer making business. And I started this with a friend, and we decided to register the domain name getapcnow.com.
Get a PC now. So get a PC now. And that was APC.
And that was the best thing I could find in 1998.
Yeah, today we can look back and laugh at that. I'm like, that is kind of difficult. It's like 4 words essentially. And so what happened to that business that you started when you were, still in middle school? Or was that high school at that time?
No, that was middle school. I was about 12 years old, and I did really well. It was a business that I had a friend who knew how to put together computers, and I had secured my first credit card at the time. So I was able to go online and buy computer parts for inexpensive prices and put together custom-made computers for friends and family. I had a pager at the time. I converted my personal pager to a business pager. I printed up flyers. I built a website on getapcnow.com. I advertised my service. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Years later, I let the domain expire and I didn't even think about it. Somebody else picked it up and built a business on it. I don't know the details of the business, but years later, I actually followed the domain name and waited for it to expire again, and then subsequently reacquired it.
So now you're back. You are the registrant again of getapcnow.com.
Absolutely.
And is
And
that
that,
going to redirect eventually to XYZ.com or?
well, it'll probably redirect to a .xyz as I make the transition to fully promote my newest domain extension .xyz.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about, I love to start the interview with some emotion about it. And, whenever I make a big purchase, whether it's, making a car or buying a house or whatever in my life, I've always felt a little nervous, like a little stirring in my gut. When you made your payment totaling $555,000 for 3 new TLD applications, were you nervous?
Not at all.
Not at
And
all.
actually, to the contrary, there's a saying in real estate that you make all of the money whenever you buy a property. And I view it the same way with the internet, is that once you buy an asset, you make all your money, and you build up all the equity at that point of that purchase. So with these application fees of $555,000, although that is a lot of money for everybody, for me, it was one of the biggest no-brainer investments that I've ever had to consider and had the opportunity to invest in. And the investment that I've put thus far is significantly over the $555,000 in application fees alone. Subsequently, I've secured the .college TLD in a private contention set, and that was a significant investment. And in addition to that, the marketing resources and personnel that we've put on the .xyz promotional project far exceeds 7-figure investment that will be done on an annual basis. We have a multi-million-dollar a year marketing budget set to promote the .xyz top-level domain. And when I look at things where I purchased individual domain names in the second level, domains like degree.com or ringtones.com, many of these domain names are 7-figure domain names. So purchasing one domain name for 7 figures is a lot less than getting an entire namespace with an application fee of $185,000. Now, the risk in that application fee, of course, was that I might not have gotten the top level domain. My application might not have gotten approved. So come the time in the queue when my application was being approved, at that point, I might have been a little nervous if my application was going to get approved or not. But I had worked day and night. I didn't sleep for 3 days when I first wrote that application, and I really, really worked as hard as I could, and I put my entire intellectual capital into that application. So I was very confident in getting approved, very recently I got approved for all 3 of my applications. So it was a very rewarding thing and I actually put it up as one of the most challenging things of my life, because I think it was about a 300-page application or so, and it was one of the most challenging adventures I've ever gone through in my life.
All right. So I want to, nobody got to a point like you are today overnight. And clearly it took a lot of work to put in the applications, in addition to having the massive amount of capital that you needed in order to research it and write it and support it going forward, just like you're talking about. But I want to back up, because when you first started the industry, from my research, it appears you did some domain name buying. Then you actually launched a registry on your own. So I want to go through in progression to figure out how you got to today. So when you first started in the industry, were you buying and selling domain names? Were you flipping, or were you investing? How do you look back at your early years in the domain name industry?
Sure. From the my original domain investments that I was making, I was purchasing domain names for development ideas that I had, and I was looking to buy domain names for the purposes not to resell them, but for purposes of having strong, memorable brands for my own startups.
Gotcha. So you've always considered yourself a developer more than a flipper?
Absolutely.
And what kinds of domains did you buy in hopes of developing, or for development?
Sure. So I was looking for names that I could name a startup company of my own. Short, one word domains, dictionary domains, short domains that really kind of define what a category is really the main thing that I look for in purchasing individual domain names.
Gotcha. And what did you find in your early days?
In the early days, it was rough. I got domains like getapcnow.com.
Yeah, but that was your early days. When you actually figured out the industry, when you actually figured out that you needed a
Sure.
single word that defined an
Absolutely,
industry.
absolutely. So one of the first and largest acquisitions I had made at the time were my initials, and I'm sure a lot of domain investors will look at that and say, "Well, what are their initials?" Mine are DMN, and for me, I needed to own DMN.com, and there was a company that started up in the early '90s called the Digital Music Network. They had raised $5 million or $10 million, and they had spent it all, and it was a very successful product at some point, but they failed as well. They weren't able to secure more financing, and there was a gentleman that I found online that owned it, and I did a Whois lookup, and I called him, and he had his cell phone on the Whois, and he said to me, "Well, how did you find me?" And I said, "Well, I have my ways." And he actually was an individual who I believe lived in Boston, and he happened to be in Los Angeles at the time that I called him. So we got together for a drink, and I mentioned to him that I had an idea and I wanted to buy the domain name, and we negotiated back and forth on the price, and that was the first major domain purchase that I made. And since then, I've had several opportunities to sell a domain name, but I'm not looking to sell my initials. And I'm actually just currently now looking at building my own blog to share some of my business secrets and passions in life, and my skills that I've been able to accomplish so far. I want to share that with the world, and I don't have the ability to have my own .xyz domain name yet because the TLD is yet to be delegated. So as an interim, I look to be using dmn.com for that, and I hope to at some point redirect it then to dmn.xyz.
Very cool. I know a lot of domain name investors that have three-letter .coms, and I've only recently tried to figure that out. When I had the Costello brothers on the show, and they talked about owning your local cities or towns, I went out and bought my city and town. Now I'm feeling like I need to go out and buy my initials, Daniel. So I gotta go check it out. I'm not gonna tell you what my middle name is. I'm gonna go check it out before you go and try and negotiate. What was the price that you paid back I guess 10 plus years ago, or 10 so years ago?
I have to check. Hang on one second.
You got it right there, huh?
No, I think it was I announced it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because now 3 letters. I just had a gentleman on talking about heritage auctions and their 3-letter, 2-letter auctions going on.
I bought DMN.com for a little bit over $22,000 in 2006.
2006.
And since then, I have received multiple offers significantly over that price, and I've very recently turned down a low 6-figure offer for the domain name. So I'm not actively looking to sell the domain name, and I am looking to use it for my business.
Yeah, and they are fantastic domains, because any company that has 3 words in their name might want an acronym for their domain name.
Yeah, and some might say that, I was born in 1985, which is the first year that .com was originally registered. And if you look at my initials, DMN could be construed as being short for domain. So some might say I'm born to be in this business.
Very cool. I read on DN Journal, Daniel, that you also own great domains like driving.com, besthotels.com, ringtones.com, and some phenomenal, I love my educational domain names. Not that I have anywhere near what you have, like degree.com, communitycollege.com, and phd.com. Have you developed out any of these? I didn't check prior to the show.
Yeah, I have. Some of these websites have been previously developed as well. Degree.com was a website since 1996. We have gone through multiple iterations of developing them, and as you know, as any developer knows, there is a constant reinvention of a development project. So our focus right now has really been on our new top level domains, and I am pushing forth all of my marketing efforts towards .xyz. So now that I'm doing that, a lot of my existing .com domains might suffer a little bit from our development resources, but I do have a team of 25 people in Los Angeles, which is Cyber2 Media, which is a professional development company, and we keep on top of all the latest development technologies such as responsive designs. And XYZ.com is an example of one of our recent developments. It's a fully responsive website. It works on mobile devices as well as desktop devices. And
right. And just before we started recording, I fired up my phone and I went to xyz.com and I did a pre-registration for Domain Sherpa. And of course, I'm the trademark holder for Domain Sherpa, so I was able to click that button that says yes, and it was a beautifully laid out site on my iPhone.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. You can go to anybody, all of the listeners can go to xyz.com and make a pre-registration request for any domain or any number of domains. And as we release the domains and we do our launch, we will be in touch with you through our email newsletter to let you know how you can register the domain when it becomes available.
When you bought XYZ.com, did you have any aspirations of launching a registry service, or did you just think that it was a cool 3-letter domain?
So I actually wanted to start a registrar service. So I wanted to be like a GoDaddy, and I actually applied with ICANN, and I was approved, and I started to develop my registrar software. And I bought some existing source code that worked. We started modifying it. We were ready to go. And all of a sudden, ICANN announced the application window for new top level domains. And at that point, I pivoted the company to be a registry instead of a registrar.
Gotcha. So you've invested a lot of time. You probably focused 100% on your efforts on XYZ.com, the registrar. You had your team working on the software, getting ready for launch, and then suddenly ICANN announces the new TLDs, and you just put all that sort of on the back burner.
So it wasn't wasted efforts. I made some fantastic contacts in the registrar business, as well as the registry business. And in doing so, I was able to learn a lot about what is involved whenever a registrar is trying to connect with a registry, because naturally I was doing that. So I'm able to use all of that experience now as I am the registry. I'm able to make the process that much easier for all the other registrars out there that are looking to connect to xyz.com to promote .xyz domain names.
Got it. So even though you may not be moving forward with that, it's a lesson learned. You learned a bunch of lessons around it and made a lot of contacts in the industry that are going to help you going forward.
Absolutely. And we can touch on a third level registry, which I had previously launched.
I do. I want to ask you about that next. So cyber2media.com, cyber, it's almost like Cyger, not just joking, cyber, cyber, the number 2 media.com, your company that has, I think you said 25 full-time employees working there. Do you do work for other companies to develop out their properties or services, or is it all an internally focused, develop your own properties endeavor?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Cyber2 Media is a full-fledged web development and advertising agency. We work on my properties as well as select clients. We also manage domain names, provide consulting services for domain acquisitions, and we provide a lot of technical back-end consulting as to how we recommend people monetize their domain names or manage their digital assets. And we have some strong relationships with Google and Yahoo, where we are some of the largest advertisers in the respective spaces that we advertise on Google AdWords. And we have some technology built there to handle that. And yeah, I've got a great group of people, and really, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today without the solid team that I've been able to build over the years.
Yeah, definitely. How big, from a revenue standpoint, is Cyber2 Media?
We're a privately owned company, so we don't announce those numbers.
And is there one, website that you've developed that from your own portfolio that you feel is representative of the development um, prowess of Cyber2 Media? One of your properties that just this is what we can do for other companies or for our own portfolios.
So I wish I could announce some of the projects that we work on because of the confidentiality that we have with our clients. We're really behind the scenes. One of our taglines is the company behind the company. So I can't say a lot of the really high profile projects that we had, but you could see some of the projects that we've put online, such as llama.com or XYZ.com or besthotels.com. These are all, and some of these sites have been launched over the years, so they might not be on the latest cutting edge of the technology with the responsiveness, but driving.com is one, SBA.com is another one. It's a great resource that we have online, and we're constantly innovating. I always put my clients' projects first, so a lot of times my own domains kind of sit second in line to get the attention that they need, but that's just because of my experience working in real estate. I was always working for clients, and I have that kind of customer comes first attitude.
Yeah. How did such a young entrepreneur like yourself, Daniel, get the capital to buy phenomenal domain names like driving.com and degree.com and besthotels.com? It's easy for people to say, oh, he's launching a registry because he's got great domains that are developed and they're earning capital or have cash flow, or they're making good parking, unlike my crappy domains. But how do you even get the capital as such a young entrepreneur to be able to invest in XYZ or buy these great companies or domain names?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a collaboration of all the work I've put through my whole life. I've always gone all in every opportunity. I remember some acquisitions that I've made where there was one acquisition that I can't share the domain name, but I had put a significant amount as a down payment to purchase the domain name. It was nearly a seven-figure amount that I put down. In addition to that, I had the seller finance the domain for me over an extended period of time, and I had them. The monthly payments were six figures a month, and to come up with that capital, I had put all the money that I had available to me. In addition to that, all the money that I thought I was going to make over the next year committed to that purchase. So the capital has really started back when I was 12, when I was making custom made computers, and I sold a $3,000 computer and cost me $2,000, made $1,000. I had several jobs growing up. I did different entrepreneurial ventures where I was buying and selling jerseys, for example, and selling them on eBay. It made a lot of money doing that as well. I built websites for people, made money doing that. Started working in real estate, had a very successful run in real estate, and I always parlayed my success into reinvesting into myself and into my business. I never really believed in stocks or investing into other companies because I've always known that the best investment I could make is in myself.
So you believe in yourself. You're going to take that $1,000 of profit that you made off the transaction, and you're just going to invest it into something that you feel strongly about, that you've thought about, that you're going to invest in, and either you're going to, you know, double down and take twice the profit off or multiple times off in the future, or you'll lose it. But that's your decision. You're investing in your own decisions rather
I
than
like,
others.
absolutely. I like to be in the driver's seat, and for me, I'm in full control, and I make very calculated investment decisions. So for me, with the investment decisions that I make, it's I when I'm in control, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put my best effort forward. And if it means I have to work 100 hours a week to be successful, I'm willing to work 100 hours a week to be successful. And at the end of the day, I'm going to know that the success or failure of my venture had to do with me, and it was in my control. And if I gave it my best shot, and I wasn't successful, then so be it. But knock on wood, to date, I've been very successful, and I believe it's been because of the team that I have and the company that I've built and the companies that I've built and the people that I have around me that have always been there to support me through the good times and the bad times.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you don't have a great team, you can't do anything. In Ron Jackson's story, you said that you started in college and you met Alan Azir, I think, the founder of W.WS, and Greg McLemore, the founder of WebMagic, and that meeting changed everything in your investment life. What did you learn from meeting those two gentlemen?
Absolutely. I was part of a group called SC. I was part of a group known as SCEA, Southern California Entrepreneurship Academy, and they were alumni of that program, and they had gone through it when they were in college as well. And they came back and guest spoke, and meeting them really gave me the motivation to know that, well, they were able to do it, and they were just ordinary people who had a vast amount of success. Well, why shouldn't I be able to do it? And that really kind of helped motivate me further. And it's really funny, Alan Azir, who I haven't seen since 2006 or spoken to since 2006, happened to have read the DN Journal article and reached out to me, thanking me for the compliment that I gave him. And I'm actually meeting with him on Monday, and we're
Very
just
cool.
so I'm really looking forward to catching up with him and seeing what he's up to.
Nice. All right. So you started in the industry. You bought a really crappy domain name to start with. You worked your way up. You bought great domain names. You took any profits that you had from all your businesses. You parlayed it into fantastic domain names. You were a developer, so you were able to generate cash flow off these domains, off of a business like besthotels.com. And then eventually you came to own com.de. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So that's through a company that I run, and .com.de is a third level registry where at some point .de was regulated and they had held back certain 2-letter and 3-letter .de domain names.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they released it, one of the domain names that was released was com.de. And I instantly knew that there is a fantastic business opportunity to sell third level domain names because many countries run .com.au, or it used to be .com.mx. Now it's now .mx. Colombia was run on .com.co, but it's still very popular in many countries like
Right.
.com.au. And it was a no-brainer business opportunity. I spent about 8 months pursuing the person who ended up acquiring the domain name when it became available, and we made a win-win deal, and I was very happy about it, and that was my opportunity to now run a registry, and it really gave me the opportunity to do something that I've wanted to do my whole life, which was run a registry. Now, ICANN didn't allow for new top-level domains yet, so I've been waiting since 2006 when I met Alan Azir, who told me he was running .ws, to figure out how am I going to get my own top level domain. So .com.de was a great opportunity. It was a very successful launch, and it is still a very successful top level domain. We have great end users who have adopted the TLD, and registrars has been a very profitable product for registrars. And all in all, it was a big win. It gave us the experience and the connections to now be that much more successful with .xyz.
So it is basically just a domain name under the .de top level domain, right? So I could go register, if I lived in Germany, I could go register domainsherpa.de, for example, and then I could sell third level domains, www.domainsherpa.de or daniel.domainsherpa.de to other people that wanted to buy them. That's essentially what you've created with this registry.
So I'm gonna back up because you said .de, it's .com.de. So
right. So when you say .com.de, it is
domainsherpa.com.de. So you can go to InternetX and register domainsherpa.com.de.
right. But essentially you started just with a domain name, right? You bought com.de and then you
correct.
built a registry on top of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I understand. And so ICANN doesn't regulate when somebody wants to sell third level domains on a domain name. So you were able to just set up a business and say, I'm selling whatever.com.de.
Sure. So the way that works is that there is a domain name called com.de.
Mm-hmm.
So we set up a registry on com.de where we can sell subdomains, essentially third level domains.
Right.
And we run it exactly like we would have run a ICANN registry, where we wholesale it to the different registrars like InternetX or Key Systems or Strato, which are all very large registrars in Europe. And they sell it to end customers who will go in and register klaus.com.de. And I have to take a moment and really thank my partners in Germany for accepting the top level domain .com.de and for helping with the marketing of it, because without Håkan and Thomas and Klaus at InternetX, we wouldn't have been able to be as successful as we are today.
Do you find that most people that register domains on .com.de are in Germany?
Yes, and we are but however, at the same time, there are many companies who are looking for a presence in Germany, which are so there are many companies which are looking for a presence in Germany, but in order to register a .de domain name, you actually have to have a registered agent in Germany. So it could be a cumbersome process
right.
for you to get a .de domain name. With .com.de, we actually have a trust set up in Germany, and we have registered agent in Germany, which runs the domain .com.de, and subsequently anybody around the world can register the .com.de of their choice.
Mm-hmm. And you run this third level registry. Is that the correct way to refer to it? As a third level domain registry?
Yes.
Okay. You run it just like it's ICANN accredited. You use Centronic as your back end. They run all the systems to take orders, and it seems to somebody that is uneducated about how ICANN accreditation works and your registry, they look identical.
Absolutely. So Centralink runs the back end, and they also power many other country code domains, like .la, for example. And they run .com.de to the same standards that they run any of their other top level domains.
When you thought about launching this, did you look for partners to work with, or did you are you the primary shareholder of .com.de?
So we do have some partners, but for when I looked to launch it, the first thing I looked at was actually distribution partners that I was looking for. And I remember being at Domain Fest in Santa Monica, sitting with Hakan Ali, the founder of InternetX, and pitching him the idea of selling .com.de third level domains, and we came up with a marketing plan and we executed on it.
How do you know he's not just blowing smoke at you, Daniel? Like I go to these conferences and I sit next to people. I'm like, I should think about buying that domain because I'm a developer. I could build something on there, and I get people saying, yeah, that's a great idea. How do you know when it's actually a good idea to do something like that, to invest a lot of your personal time as well as your capital to buy a I don't know, I'm going to guess a 7 or 8 figure domain like com.de and build a registry on top of it when, especially like when, nothing against Internet X or anybody that works there, it's their advantage to have more things to sell. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a profitable endeavor for you.
So with a domain like .com.de, there's a natural demand for it, and I knew that. So because of the other country codes that we're promoting like .com.au, it's known to me that people will and want to register a .com.de. In the United States, people register .com mainly. People don't register .us domain names. In Germany, they register .de. The second thing they register in Germany is .com. So people are looking for alternatives, and I think at the time there might have been 10 or 12 million .de domain names. So the space is somewhat saturated. Well, people are registering 3, 4, 5 word with hyphens in the .de zone when they can register a 1 word or 2 word .com.de at a very attractive price. It's kind of like the equivalent of being the .net in Germany.
Right. Wow. Is
And
.com.de profitable today, Daniel?
yes,
Did it take you, have you received payback from your investment?
yes.
How many domain names, looking forward on all these new TLDs, how many domain names do you need to sell on a recurring basis to be profitable?
Well, that depends on how much marketing effort and how much human resources I put towards it. With .xyz, as I mentioned earlier, we have a multi-million dollar a year marketing campaign.
Yep.
So we haven't announced our final pricing. We are planning on being a low-cost domain extension. So we are being going to be very competitive with our pricing as to the options that are available today. Um, and I can share that with .xyz, because of the success that we've had with registrars so far and the enormous interest that we've gotten from registrars around the world to carry the product, we have raised our expectation numbers to 1 million registrations of .xyz within the first year. And we believe we're going to get 5 million registrations within the first 3 years.
Wow. So even if it was just 1 million as a round number and use $10 as a registration cost, that's $10 million in revenue. Not all yours, of course, and you have wholesale pricing. But are you looking to be even less than a $10 registration cost?
Uh, that's something that's going to be controlled mainly by the registrars.
Okay.
However, we are going to be providing pricing guidance, and we would like to see the domain be sold at a very competitive, affordable price.
Gotcha. And how many domain names have been registered in .com.de?
We don't publish the zone files for
Okay.
that.
And is there no way for me as somebody that wants to look into investment to try and download zone files on .com.de?
That's something that would be provided by CentralNIC,
Yeah.
and you could just go and try and register .com.de at InternetX or Strato or any registrar in Germany.
Gotcha. All right. I know we only have a few more minutes, Daniel, so I want to move into the .xyz. We talked about your investment in .xyz, why you weren't afraid, the .com.de as sort of an experience base for you, and having met one of the co-founders of .ws and gone through the whole registrar process, so you clearly understood it. Do you think .college or .xyz is going to launch first?
.xyz, we're planning on launching at a sunrise in the first quarter of 2014.
Okay.
And we're working very hard to get our founders programs ready, so we can have a land rush in the second quarter and general availability in the third quarter of 2014.
So when you say land rush, that means that anybody, open enrollment will start, basically. Open registration?
No, open registration is general availability.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Land rush is another phase in the launch process, which will allow people to secure the domain name first over other people at a set fee on a kind of first come, first serve basis.
Right. And if I'm an investor and I want to get some of the really premium domain names, how do I go about letting you know that I'm interested in that domain name?
Go to XYZ.com and pre-register the interest in the domain names, and we will keep you informed on the land rush dates and how you can participate in the land rush phase and or the founders programs. And once those dates are finalized and are available, then you will know. The best thing to do is to go on Facebook and like our page, go on Twitter, follow us there, and most importantly, sign up on XYZ.com and confirm your email address.
Right, but I'm a nobody in the industry, Daniel. Your team isn't going to know Mike Seiger when you've got Rick Schwartz and Mike Birkins and all these guys that do regular investing in new top-level domains, saying, I want a piece of all of the really premium domain names. Is that the way that I try and get into the Founders Program, is to...
So we're not planning on discriminating against anybody, and we're running an open registry. And that being said, we are looking at all of the pre-registration requests that come in, and the pre-registration request adds you to a mailing list, which we will communicate with you to update the dates for you. So I think the best chance for you and your viewers are to actually go and pre-register something today.
Excellent. All right. I've just done that, and people can go to xyz.com to do that. Daniel, in 10 years, if you had to look into your crystal ball and see in 10 years what .xyz looks like, do you think it's going to be as popular as .com? Do you think it's going to be more popular than .net? Do you think that the other TLDs are going to sort of wash out people's expectations about TLDs? What do you see happening?
Sure. So right now, people think of the internet, they think .com, .net, .org.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking in the next 3 to 5 years for people to start thinking .com, .net, .xyz. In the next 10 years, I'm hoping that we will be able to serve our marketing mission, provide internet users enough competition and innovation and choice with the .xyz top-level domain, where people will think of .xyz as their first choice when it comes to registering a domain name for any product, service, personal blog, business, for anything, any internet use. I want people to think .xyz, then .com, .net, .college.
So, but I don't understand what .xy, of course, .college, but I don't understand what .xyz means to me. Like, why would I want to go register? You know, you talked about earlier, one of the first domain names you bought was dmn.com and that you're going to launch a blog on it. Why wouldn't you say I'm going to launch dmn.xyz to begin with and put your blog there?
Because .xyz wasn't available yet.
Okay.
So now that I'm making .xyz available, that's where I will be launching my blog.
Gotcha.
And people will, the meaning, the beauty behind .xyz is we are aiming to be the default TLD. We want to be the main domain extension that exists out there, so that when anybody in the world thinks about registering a domain name, they can think about it ending in .xyz. It's 3 letters. It's easy to remember. It's the last 3 letters of the alphabet. So why not end the domain extension with it? One of our marketing promotions that we're running right now has to do with the targeting. Somebody else asked me, hey, Daniel, who are you targeting? What generations are you targeting? Are you targeting Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z? And the way they asked me the question, it hit me. I said, we're targeting Generation XYZ. We are XYZ. It encompasses all of the generations that are out there to register domains today. And we look to really be there to provide internet users with another choice to register domain names and to provide domain investors, domain developers, businesses, individuals, and the like the opportunity to get a relevant, short, easy to remember domain name that was launched with the intention to be the generic default domain name. .xyz is the most generic new top-level domain name there is. You can't get more generic than that. When you look at the launch of other TLDs like .com, .com was launched as for commercial institutions. .net was launched for networks. .org was launched for organizations like nonprofits. Now, those TLDs are being used for different reasons. .tv was launched for the country of Tuvalu, but is used to advertise TV now. And .xyz is being launched to be the default extension for internet users around the world, regardless of the language they speak. It's an easy to remember, short domain extension.
Yeah. All right. Before the final question, Daniel, I want you to zoom down, show me your XYZ t-shirt. I love the logo that you have. You used, I actually looked at the guy, and then zoom up. I want to see the neon sign you have there. There you go. It's an awesome piece of artwork there. Is that a local artist that designed that for you? Do you have it commissioned?
This is a local artist. His name is Kelly Graval. He goes by Risk, and that's his graffiti name, street name. And he is a good friend of mine, and I acquired this 10-foot guitar, which was manufactured by Gibson, at a charity auction run by the city of West Hollywood. This guitar was actually on Sunset Strip in West Hollywood for a year for a promotion that the city of West Hollywood had. And I then commissioned Kelly Graval to redo the guitar and add some patriotic colors and add a .xyz to it, and really kind of customize it. So we're very happy with the way it turned out, and it's one of a kind piece of art, and I don't see any other TLD coming up with a 10.
And if you scroll and if you move your camera down a little bit, the logo that you designed up for XYZ is pretty awesome also. I actually went to in my research, I stumbled upon the artist that designed it for you, and he's done some phenomenal work as well. How did you find that that artist that designed up your typography and design?
Absolutely. He's a full-time employee of Cyber 2 Media, and just goes to show you the quality of skills that we're able to nurture here.
Yeah.
And he's also a friend.
Excellent. All right, so here's the final question. Daniel, I know that you have stated earlier you make money on the buy. Warren Buffett thinks the same thing. He's a value investor. You don't make money when you sell. You make money when you buy. You got to look for your opportunities that are undervalued where other people don't see it being an opportunity. He looks for the assets. Do they have cash flow? Or is it an investment for the long term? He wants, other people to think that it's not a good investment, but as long as he sees the right metrics, he's willing to invest. What do you think Warren Buffett would say about your investments in domain names like driving.com and besthotels.com and your investment in top-level domains if you were to chat with him today?
So that's a great question. Believe it or not, I've asked him a similar question before, not specifically on the domain names individually, but when I had the opportunity to meet him and have dinner with him and lunch the next day, I did have a decent amount of time to talk to him, and I asked him what some of his thoughts were in these types of investments that I was working on. And for him, because it didn't make sense to me, why wouldn't one of the richest men in the world be investing directly in this, And he said, well, it doesn't move the needle for me. That's why he loves the stock market, because for him, he is a value investor, but he's also trying to grow billions and billions of dollars. So for someone like me who's trying to grow my millions into billions, then it makes sense for me. But interestingly enough, he has upped his stake in VeriSign. So he does see that there is opportunity and value in the top level domain space. And I believe that he would be all over investing in me, in .xyz, in driving.com and all of my domain names. However, at the moment, I'm not looking for any outside investor capital, so he will
All
have to
right.
get in
Yeah,
line.
and Warren Buffett did increase his stakes significantly just this year alone in VeriSign. So that is a big telling. That's a big tell for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one day I'll accept investments and I'll reach out to Warren Buffett. But until then, we're self-funded, profitable, very successful, and we look forward to continuing our success with the launch of .xyz, .college, and .now.
Well, I can't wait for that day. If you have additional questions, please post them in the comments below, and we'll ask Daniel to come back and answer as many as he can. Daniel Negari, founder of XYZ. .xyz, which you can go pre-register at xyz.com. Thank you for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge about the domain name industry, and thanks for being a domain Sherpa.
Take care, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.